Welcome, weary traveler, to a place of silence and shadows. The chill of the night wraps around you like an old, tattered cloak. Close your eyes and imagine yourself standing beside a cold, still lake. The water mirrors the darkened sky above, its surface only disturbed by the occasional ripple from a distant breeze. The air is thick with a dampness that chills your bones, and the scent of old stone lingers, heavy with age. This is Harrenhal, a place that echoes with a cursed past, where every stone and shadow seems to whisper of a tragedy long ago. As you stand at the edge of the lake, the ancient ruins of the castle loom before you. Its towering walls, blackened by the fire of Balerion, seem to stretch endlessly into the dark sky. The weight of history presses down upon you, and yet, something about this place feels empty. The curse of Harrenhal is one that lingers in the very air, a silent presence that you can almost feel against your skin. The stone that once towered proudly over the lands now feels cold and brittle, like something long forgotten. Yet, even in its decay, the castle stands, silent, waiting. But there is a chill in the air tonight, deeper than the mere cold of the stone. It is the kind of chill that makes you feel as though you are not alone. You sense something, an unease that slowly seeps into your bones, a curse that has never quite left this place. As you begin to walk, the ground beneath your feet feels unnaturally cold, and the ruins seem to grow larger with every step you take, their shadows stretching across the ground. Let the night settle around you now, as you take in the story of this haunted place. Feel the air growing stiller, the world around you dimming as we take a deeper look into Harrenhal's chilling past. The tale of its curse begins long ago, with a king's ambition and the flames that brought his destruction. So, let your breath slow and your mind drift as we delve into the eerie facts of this once great castle. And now, as the night settles across the ruins and your breath slows, let this castle fade into silence, just like your thoughts. Harrenhal stands today as one of the most eerie, desolate places in all of Westeros. But to understand the true horror of this castle, we must first look back to the man whose ambition and arrogance gave rise to the curse that still hangs over its ruins. Harren the Black, a name that evokes both fear and pity. Born a man of great ambition, his story is one that serves as a warning to all who dream too big in a world full of sharp edges and dragons. In the early days of his reign, Harren was a proud and powerful man, a ruler who believed he could achieve anything, conquer anything, with enough might and determination. He was the Lord of House Harren, the ruler of the Riverlands, and he dreamed of a future in which his power extended across all of Westeros. To secure his position, Harren set his sights on the greatest, most imposing castle the world had ever seen, Harrenhal. He decided it must become a fortress so vast, so grand, that no one would dare challenge his authority. The structure he built was meant to reflect the size of his own ambition, towering over the land like an indomitable mountain of stone. But what few understand, and what many still forget, is that Harrenhal was not simply a castle, it was a statement. It was an extension of his ego, a monument to his own belief in invincibility. The stones that made up its great walls were not simply there for defense, but as symbols of his unshakable certainty. Harren ordered the construction of the castle with a fervor that quickly became obsession. He spared no expense, brought in the finest stone masons, and demanded that the work proceed at a pace that would make even the most skilled craftsmen tremble. But even with his riches and his ambition, there was a flaw in his plan that he could not see, something that would prove to be his undoing. When the great walls of Harrenhal were finally raised to their towering heights, they did not stand as a testament to Harren's greatness. Instead, they stood as a glaring target. One of the oldest and most terrifying threats in Westeros lurked in the shadows, an ancient power that could not be ignored: dragons. It was said that in his arrogance, Harren believed himself safe from all harm, even from the dragons of the Targaryen family. After all, Harren's castle was the largest in the known world. He was convinced that his stone walls, thick and high, could withstand any attack. But his presumption blinded him to the reality of what dragons were capable of, and what Balerion the Black Dread, the largest and most fearsome of them all, could do. The fateful day came when King Aegon I Targaryen, also known as Aegon the Conqueror, set his sights on Harrenhal. Aegon was not a man known for mercy, but his mind was strategic, and he knew that to rule the Seven Kingdoms, he would need to subdue the rebellious houses and wipe out any remaining resistance. And so he gathered his forces, his dragon, Balerion, at his side. As Aegon approached Harrenhal, Harren the Black must have felt a sense of deep disbelief. Surely a man as great as he, with such a mighty castle, could not be defeated by the likes of a dragon. But as the flames of Balerion's breath descended upon the castle, Harren realized too late the extent of his mistake. The sky above Harrenhal turned black, not from the clouds, but from the sheer weight of Balerion's wings as he soared through the air. And then came the fire, a searing, all-consuming blaze that swept across the castle like a tidal wave of heat and destruction. The thick, black stone that had been so carefully stacked to build the towering walls of Harrenhal melted under the intense heat of Balerion's fire. In an instant, the castle was no longer the invincible fortress that Harren had imagined, but a crumbling ruin. Harren himself, desperate and helpless, had been in the highest tower when the flames began to consume the castle. It is said that he fled to the very top of the tower in an attempt to escape the inferno below, but his flight was in vain. The heat was too great, and the stone walls too brittle. Harren the Black was trapped. The story of his final moments is one of tragic irony. As he reached the top of the tower, he must have thought he was safe, that the flames could not reach him. But it was there, at the highest point of his castle, that he met his end. The fire consumed the tower from the ground up, and the stone beneath his feet crumbled away, sending him plunging to his death. The man who had once believed himself invincible, who had built a castle to symbolize his greatness, was reduced to ashes, a victim of his own hubris. But the curse did not end with Harren's death. No, in fact, it was only just beginning. After Aegon's conquest, Harrenhal was left as a smoldering ruin, abandoned by the victorious Targaryens. The curse of Harren the Black lived on in the castle, lingering in the stone and in the memories of those who had been there before. It is said that the ghost of Harren himself still roams the castle, his spirit unable to rest, forever trapped in the very place where he had fallen. Even in the years that followed, as the castle was passed between various lords, the curse of Harrenhal continued to cast its long shadow. Many who took residence there met untimely and often tragic ends. Some went mad, others were driven to despair, and many simply disappeared, their fates unknown. But all who lived there seemed to be touched by the darkness that hung over the place. The curse of Harrenhal is not just the story of one man's downfall, but of the price of arrogance and unchecked ambition. It is a reminder that even the greatest of castles, no matter how grand or powerful, can fall, often in the most unexpected and catastrophic of ways. The flames that destroyed Harrenhal did not simply scorch the stone. They scarred the land and the people who came after him. And yet, there are whispers, even to this day, that the curse of Harrenhal is not yet fully realized, that the ruin is still waiting for its next victim. The fires of Balerion may have burned the castle to the ground, but the curse, born from the pride and arrogance of a king, remains, lingering like the cold touch of a ghostly hand. So, as you sit by the cold lake tonight, listening to the sounds of the wind rustling through the trees and the faint murmur of the water, know this: the curse of Harren the Black has not forgotten. The ruins of Harrenhal stand not only as a reminder of one man's tragic end, but as a warning to all who would dare to dream too big, to believe themselves above the forces of fate. As we continue to explore the chilling mysteries of Harrenhal, one of the most enduring and eerie tales is the legend of the burnt stone, the claim that some of the walls of the castle still bear the heat of the fires that consumed it centuries ago. This phenomenon, more than any other, seems to capture the essence of the castle's curse, a lingering, impossible-to-ignore presence of the past, forever intertwined with the stones that make up the castle itself. Let us imagine, then, that we are standing in the heart of the ruins of Harrenhal. The air is cold, perhaps colder than it has any right to be on a night such as this. The stone walls loom above us, their towering forms now cracked and worn with time. Yet, despite the appearance of these ancient stones, weathered by centuries of neglect and ruin, there is something unsettling about them. A warmth. The kind of warmth that lingers, just beneath the surface, like the glow of embers long extinguished, but never fully gone. It is said that even on the coldest of nights, when the chill of the riverland seeps deep into your bones, the stones of Harrenhal will still burn under your fingertips. When travelers wander through the abandoned hallways, they often speak of the sensation of touching the walls, only to feel a heat that does not match the outside world. It is a warmth that cannot be explained by the faint remnants of a fire long gone, or the natural shifting of stone in the cold of night. No, this heat seems to rise from within the walls themselves, as if the fire of Balerian's flames still burns deep inside, and the castle is not simply a ruin, but a place where the fire is eternal, trapped forever within the very fabric of the building. The origin of this phenomenon is tied, of course, to the day the fire of Balerian the Black dread rained down upon Harrenhal. As we discussed earlier, Harren the Black, the arrogant king who sought to make his castle a monument to his own invincibility, could never have anticipated the fury of the dragon that destroyed it. The flames that swept over the castle were no ordinary fire. Balerian's breath was said to be capable of melting steel, turning stone to slag, and reducing entire structures to ash in mere moments. Yet, while the fire may have destroyed the castle in an instant, leaving only charred stone in its wake, the legend of the burnt stone suggests something much deeper. The fire did not simply ravage the exterior, it permeated the very heart of the castle. The heat, it is said, burned so intensely that it reached into the deepest recesses of the stone itself, leaving a residual warmth that never quite dissipated. The question, of course, is why this phenomenon exists in the first place. Why is it that Harrenhal, more than any other place in Westeros, seems to hold on to the memory of the fire that consumed it? Perhaps it is the very nature of the curse that lingers in the ruins, a reminder of Harren's hubris and the tragedy that followed. Some say that the heat is not simply the echo of the fire, but a manifestation of the wrath that brought the castle to ruin. The fire of Balerian was not simply a physical destruction, it was a divine judgment, a reckoning for Harren's arrogance, and perhaps the stones themselves bear witness to that judgment, unable to forget the terror they witnessed. Others believe that the warmth is a result of something more supernatural. In the wake of such a catastrophic event, an event that destroyed not only a man, but a way of life, the castle may have been tainted by the very essence of the fire. The lingering heat could be the result of dark magic or an ancient curse, left behind by the flames of Balerian to ensure that the castle would never truly be free of the pain and destruction it caused. It is not uncommon for places with deep and tragic histories to become haunted by the emotions and energies of the past. The fire, after all, was not just an attack on a castle. It was a symbol of destruction, of finality. And it seems that the walls of Harrenhal cannot escape that finality, no matter how many centuries pass. But the phenomenon of the burnt stone does not only manifest in the walls of Harrenhal, it extends to the very land around it. It is said that the soil itself in certain parts of the castle grounds still holds a warmth, as if the fire has left its imprint on the earth, never to fade away. There are even accounts from those brave enough to spend the night within the ruins that the heat intensifies in certain rooms, areas where the fire was the most concentrated, where Balerian's flames seemed to tear through the very foundation of the castle. It is in these rooms, particularly the inner chambers of the main keep, that the warmth is the most palpable, and where some visitors claim to feel an unsettling sensation, as though they are being watched, or perhaps as though they are being drawn deeper into the castle's dark history. Some scholars of the supernatural, those who have spent their lives studying the ancient magics and curses of Westeros, suggest that the burnt stone is more than just an oddity. They believe it is a physical manifestation of the curse itself, a lingering effect of the destructive forces that laid waste to Harrenhal. It is not unusual for places of great destruction, particularly those associated with dragons, to become infused with magic or power that is difficult to explain. The very essence of Balerian, the dragon's fire, the heat, the power, may have infused the stones, leaving them permanently marked. For those who venture into Harrenhal today, the burnt stone is not just a physical curiosity. It is a haunting reminder of the past, a presence that never truly fades. And though the walls may look worn and broken, the warmth they carry is a strange testament to the inferno that once ravaged the castle, and to the curse that lingers even now. The stones are not cold. They do not welcome the touch of time. Instead, they hold on to their memory of fire, as if unwilling to let go of the horrors they witnessed. As the years pass, the warmth remains, a constant reminder of the tragedy that unfolded within these walls. The castle may crumble, the towers may fall, but the burnt stone will never cool. It is as if the fire itself has been trapped, frozen in time within the walls of Harrenhal. And perhaps, in that heat, the very soul of the castle still burns with the fury of the past, forever untouched by the passing of centuries. So, if you ever find yourself standing in the ruins of Harrenhal, perhaps on a night as cold as this one, reach out and touch the walls. Feel the warmth that lingers just beneath the surface. It is not the warmth of the sun, nor the heat of a living fire. It is the warmth of memory, of destruction, and of a curse that will never truly leave. And as you pull your hand away, your fingers tingling from the heat, know that Harrenhal is still waiting, still burning, still holding on to the past, unwilling to let go. As the night deepens, the wind picks up across the vast, ruined grounds of Harrenhal. The breeze rustles through the skeletal remains of the castle's towers, whispering as it moves, tugging at the remnants of what was once a grand fortress. But on some nights, the wind is not the only thing that howls through these empty halls. Among the many chilling tales that have long surrounded Harrenhal, one of the most spine-chilling is the eerie phenomenon known as the Tower that Screams at Night. It is a legend that has persisted for generations, whispered by those who have had the misfortune of spending a night, or even a mere hour, within the cursed walls of the castle. And though the stories are often dismissed as mere superstition, there are those who have heard the chilling screams with their own ears, and who can never forget the haunting sound that seemed to echo from the very heart of the tower. The legend speaks of a tower, once part of Harrenhal's great structure, that still holds the echoes of a scream, an unearthly, agonized wail that can be heard in the dead of night. The sound is said to rise from within the depths of the tower itself, filling the air with a chilling, ghostly cry that reverberates through the walls and across the grounds, a cry that seems to come from nowhere, yet is inescapable. Some say it is the anguished wail of a lost soul, trapped within the tower for all eternity. Others speak of a darker presence, something far more malevolent, that causes the screams to rise from the tower's very foundations. What is truly horrifying, however, is that no one knows the source of the screams. No one knows who, or what, is responsible for the cries that tear through the silence of the night. The tower itself, though still standing, has long since lost its purpose. Once, it may have served as a lookout or a place for the lord of the castle to observe the surrounding lands. But now, it is nothing more than a hollow shell, its windows broken and its doors long gone. Yet, within the tower's empty walls, the scream persists, seemingly echoing from every corner, as though the very stones of the tower themselves are trying to cry out in anguish. The first mention of the tower that screams comes from an old journal, written by a traveler who had ventured into the ruins of Harrenhal several years after the fall of House Harren. The journal describes a strange occurrence in the middle of the night. The writer, a man by the name of Alistair, had sought shelter within the ruins, unaware of the dark history that lay hidden within the castle's walls. According to his account, he awoke to the sound of a high-pitched, agonized scream, one that seemed to pierce the very air. At first, Alistair believed it was a mere figment of his imagination, the product of a dream or the wind howling through the broken windows. But as the sound persisted, growing louder and more frantic with each passing moment, he realized that something far more sinister was at work. The scream seemed to come from the direction of the tower, and Alistair, gripped by a mix of fear and curiosity, gathered his courage and ventured toward it. The closer he drew to the tower, the louder the scream became, filling the air with an unbearable sense of terror. It was not the sound of an animal, nor the cry of a person in distress. It was something otherworldly, unnatural, as though the very essence of pain itself was being expressed through the walls of the castle. When Alistair finally reached the base of the tower, the scream suddenly ceased, leaving him standing in a stunned silence. He waited, his heart pounding in his chest, but there was no sound. Not even the wind stirred the air. It was as if the scream had never happened, as though it had been nothing more than a figment of his imagination. But Alistair knew that what he had heard was real, and he was not the only one who had heard it. Over the years, many others have claimed to hear the same scream. Some say it happens only on moonless nights, when the darkness is so thick that it feels as though the very night itself is swallowing the world. Others claim that the scream can be heard on nights when the wind is still, when the usual noises of the world are silenced, and the air hangs heavy with tension. But all who have heard the scream agree on one thing. It is a sound that fills you with an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the very soul of the castle has been twisted by the suffering it has witnessed. There are many theories about the source of the scream, but none are truly conclusive. Some believe that the scream is the result of the castle's tragic history, a manifestation of the pain and death that has occurred within its walls. The fire that consumed Harrenhal, the deaths of countless men and women, and the curse that has followed the castle for generations. All of these are thought to have left an imprint on the very fabric of the building. In this view, the scream is not the sound of a living being, but the cry of the castle itself, trapped in an endless cycle of pain and suffering. Others believe that the scream comes from the ghosts of those who perished in the fire or in the aftermath of Harrenhal's downfall. It is said that many souls have been lost in this place, their spirits unable to find peace, doomed to wander the castle's ruins for eternity. Perhaps, in the deepest recesses of the tower, one of these restless souls still lingers, bound by the horrors they endured in life, unable to escape the tower's haunting embrace. Their scream may be a cry for help, a desperate attempt to be freed from the torment of their existence. Another, darker theory suggests that the scream is the result of something far more malevolent. Some whisper that the tower is not simply haunted by the spirits of the dead, but by something far older and more dangerous. In this version of the story, the scream is the sound of a creature, an ancient and terrible being, trapped within the tower, its fury and rage forever trapped inside. The creature could be the result of some ancient dark magic, a curse that was placed upon the tower long before the Targaryens arrived in Westeros. This theory suggests that the scream is not a cry of anguish, but a roar of rage, a sound born of an entity that has been imprisoned for centuries, unable to break free. No matter the source of the scream, one thing is certain. It is a phenomenon that adds to the sense of dread and unease that pervades Harrenhal. The sound is not just a reminder of the castle's tragic past. It is a symbol of the darkness that still lingers in the place, the curse that has never truly been lifted. For those who dare to venture into the ruins, the scream serves as a reminder that Harrenhal is not a place of rest, but of torment, where the past refuses to be forgotten, and the very walls seem to scream with the pain of the lives lost within them. As you stand on the edge of the ruins tonight, the wind howling in the distance and the dark sky stretching endlessly above, listen closely. For if the night is still, and the air heavy with tension, you may just hear the scream yourself, the anguished cry of the tower, echoing through the night, a sound that fills the air with an unbearable sense of sorrow and terror. And if you do hear it, if the scream pierces the silence and fills your soul with dread, remember that it is the sound of a place that has never known peace. A place where the past is not simply remembered, but relived over and over again. A place where the very air is thick with the weight of its dark history. And so, as you close your eyes tonight, let the sound of that scream linger in your mind. Let it serve as a reminder of the haunted, cursed history of Harrenhal, and of the spirits that still call its ruined towers home. The castle of Harrenhal, with its towering walls and desolate halls, is a place where few creatures dare to linger, but there is one particular absence that stands out above all others: the lack of birds. The Riverlands, where Harrenhal lies, is a place teeming with life. The air is usually filled with the sounds of birdsong, the rustling of feathers as flocks of crows, sparrows, and swallows take to the skies, diving and swooping through the fields and trees. Yet, when you stand in the ruins of Harrenhal, the silence is deafening. There are no birds here, no chirping, no fluttering wings, no nests built in the eaves of the crumbling towers. The skies above are eerily empty, as if the very land itself has been forsaken by the natural world. It is a mystery that has puzzled many over the centuries. The absence of life, particularly of birds, within the grounds of Harrenhal is so unnatural that it has led to numerous theories, all of which paint the castle as a place steeped in some darker force. The simple fact that birds, creatures so common in most places, refuse to settle within the bounds of the castle is a testament to the strangeness of this haunted ruin. As we stand here now, beneath the shadow of the massive stone walls, take a moment to look up at the sky. The silence is so profound, so thick, that you may almost begin to feel as though the very air is holding its breath. The few times that someone has ventured close enough to the castle to observe the skies, they report a feeling of unease, an almost oppressive weight that seems to hover in the air. The absence of birds seems to exacerbate that sense of desolation, making it clear that this is no ordinary ruin. It is a place that nature itself has abandoned. To understand why there are no birds at Harrenhal, we must first turn our gaze back to the castle's dark past, particularly the fire that ravaged it at the hands of Balerion, the Black Dread. The story of Harrenhal's curse begins with that infernal blaze, the flames of which are said to have scorched not only the stone of the castle, but the very land around it. The fire was not just a physical destruction, but a spiritual and metaphysical one. It was a destructive force so immense that it could have left a permanent scar upon the land itself. The flames were so all-consuming that they may have burned away more than just the walls of the castle. Perhaps they burned something deeper, something tied to the very fabric of life itself. It is said that in the aftermath of the fire, the creatures that once thrived in the shadow of the castle fled, never to return. It is not merely that birds avoid the ruins. They have not been seen near Harrenhal for generations. Even the hardiest of creatures seem to feel the unnatural chill that hangs over the place. The few farmers and hunters who once lived near the castle would often complain about the lack of birds in the area, despite the lush fields that surrounded it. The trees were bare of nests, and the air was strangely empty, even on the most beautiful of days. No matter how many seasons passed, there was no sign of new life, no hint of the usual flocks of crows or sparrows that would have called the castle home. The silence of the skies is so pervasive that it has become an integral part of the eerie atmosphere of Harrenhal. It is as if the castle is locked in a state of perpetual death, and no creature dares to enter, as though even nature itself understands that this is a place where life cannot thrive. The land around Harrenhal has been so irrevocably altered by the fire that it seems to have become a barrier, a no-man's land that repels the most basic forms of life. The lack of birds is the most obvious and unsettling manifestation of this, but it is by no means the only sign that something is terribly wrong here. Over the years, countless theories have emerged to explain the absence of birds at Harrenhal, and many of these theories are steeped in superstition and dark folklore. Some believe that the fire that destroyed the castle left an indelible stain on the land itself, a supernatural scar that has never healed. It is not uncommon for places of immense destruction, particularly those tied to dark events, to become cursed in ways that defy reason. In this view, the lack of birds is not simply a physical consequence of the fire, but a supernatural phenomenon, a manifestation of the curse that has plagued Harrenhal since the time of Harren the Black. The castle is not merely abandoned by birds, it is actively repelling them. One of the more sinister theories suggests that the absence of birds is tied to the very nature of the curse itself. According to this superstition, the land surrounding Harrenhal was once fertile and teeming with life. But after the curse took root, the castle became a dead zone, a place where no living thing could take root. It is said that birds, as creatures of the air, are particularly sensitive to the energies of the land, and that the curse has so pervaded the earth and sky around Harrenhal that even birds, who are typically fearless in their pursuit of food and shelter, instinctively avoid it. It is as though the land itself has become poisoned by the magic that emanates from the castle, and any creature that dares to enter finds itself inexplicably repelled by the dark forces at work. Another theory posits that the birds may be intentionally avoiding Harrenhal, as if they somehow sense the danger that lies within its ruins. In this view, the lack of birds is not a result of any curse, but rather a self-imposed exile by the creatures of the land. Just as animals will sometimes avoid places of death or danger, the birds may instinctively avoid Harrenhal, knowing that the place is unsafe. The natural world may have a way of protecting itself, and the birds, with their keen instincts, may simply know that Harrenhal is a place where death lingers in the air. Perhaps they know, even on a subconscious level, that to venture too close to the castle is to risk something far worse than simply the destruction of the land. It is said that animals are often more attuned to the supernatural than humans, and this theory suggests that the birds avoid the castle because they know it is a place of lingering evil. But no theory is quite as unsettling as the one that ties the absence of birds to the very heart of the curse itself. According to one particularly grim legend, the absence of birds is a direct result of a dark pact made by Harren the Black in his quest for power. It is said that in his arrogance, Harren made a deal with a shadowy figure. Some say it was a dark sorcerer, others claim it was an entity from beyond the mortal world, in exchange for the power to make Harrenhal the greatest castle in all of Westeros. The price of that power, however, was the life force of the land itself, and as part of the bargain, all birds in the area were doomed to never return, leaving the skies above Harrenhal forever empty. Perhaps the most tragic consequence of this absence is the fact that it leaves Harrenhal as a place entirely devoid of hope. The land surrounding the castle should, by all accounts, be teeming with life, lush with plants, animals, and birds. Yet the curse has drained all vitality from the area, leaving it barren and still. The once fertile fields are now patches of dry earth, the forests surrounding the castle now devoid of life. The lack of birds, their songs, their nests, their flitting about in the trees, is a stark reminder that Harrenhal is not simply a ruin. It is a dead place, a place where nothing grows, nothing thrives, and nothing moves. When you stand in the ruins of Harrenhal and gaze across the desolate land, it is impossible not to feel the weight of that absence. The silence of the skies is suffocating, the stillness of the air oppressive. It is a place where even the most basic forms of life have been driven away, as if the curse has drained the very vitality from the land itself. The birds are gone, and with them, the hope of renewal, of growth, of life. And yet, even in this desolation, there is a strange kind of beauty. The castle, though ruined, still stands, a monument to the ambition and pride of a man who sought to defy fate. The stone walls may be cracked and crumbling, but they are still standing, their shadows stretching across the land. The birds may have fled, but the echoes of their songs can still be heard in the wind, carried across the fields by the faintest breeze. And though Harrenhal may never be a place of life again, it remains a symbol of something darker, something that cannot be forgotten, no matter how many seasons pass. The story that intertwines with the ruins of Harrenhal is rich and full of mysteries, but few are as disturbing as the tale of the disappearing servants. This is one of the strangest and most macabre legends associated with the castle, and for many, it perfectly embodies what is said about Harrenhal, a place where the natural laws seem distorted, where time behaves peculiarly, leaving a trail of unease. It is said that, during the decades following the destruction of the castle by Balerian's fire, many of the people sent to work within its vast and abandoned halls disappeared in an inexplicable manner. The stories that circulate among those who know the place speak of servants and laborers who, one night, simply vanished, leaving only the echo of their presence in empty rooms. There were no signs of struggle or any other indication to suggest what had occurred. They simply disappeared, as if swallowed by the very walls of the building, consumed by an invisible force that could not be explained by those who attempted to understand what was happening. Those who were sent to the castle were, for the most part, servants of noble families or workers tasked with overseeing parts of the castle's administration or even restoring it, attempting to reverse the damage done by the destruction of its interior. However, after only a few days of work, reports say that some began to hear footsteps in the corridors, feeling as though they were being watched by something that was there but should not have been. They would step away from the crumbling walls, moving further from the sense of abandonment and decay, but something, perhaps the coldness or the silence, would pull them back. When these servants disappeared, it was always strange. There were no screams, no signs of struggle. They didn't leave behind any trace of flight. It was as if, somehow, a blanket of silence and darkness had been cast over them. The fear and uncertainty that gripped those who heard the stories of the disappearances was palpable. What was even more unsettling was that these absences weren't just noticed by those who were closest to them, but by everyone around. Other servants who were in the same position would begin to tell similar stories, all about people who had last been seen in one of the castle's rooms. And over time, they became mysterious and threatening figures, made of shadows and incomplete accounts. The presence of the vanished seemed to linger in the words and whispers of those who remained, as though the names of these people had never truly left Harrenhal, as though the faces of the vanished were still recognizable by the eyes of those who had known them. As more and more of these incidents occurred, many began to wonder if the disappearances were tied to the curse that hung over the castle. What could be the reason for so many servants to vanish without leaving a trace? Explanations varied. Some said the land and stones of Harrenhal were cursed, that the very structure of the castle possessed a force that caused those who ventured too close to its walls and corridors to lose themselves, disappearing into time as if consumed by the curse itself. Others spoke of an invisible power that haunted the castle, something darker and deeper, that drew people into an endless cycle of oblivion. For many, the disappearances were not just a sign of terror, but of an inevitable fate that claimed those who dared stay in the place for too long. But what was even more disturbing than the fact that people disappeared was what happened to them. Some stories tell of servants who, before they vanished, mentioned hearing voices, soft voices like whispers, calling their names. Others said they had seen vague figures, women wearing old garments, who would appear suddenly among the ruins and halls. These encounters, although fleeting and hard to verify, only fueled the belief that Harrenhal was full of unseen but felt presences. These presences were the ones who took the servants, and as the story progressed, many began to wonder if the disappeared were still there, trapped in the castle in some way, if their souls, or whatever remained of them, were kept imprisoned, unable to move on, doomed to wander the castle's halls and cold corridors. But it wasn't just common folk who disappeared. Even those of noble blood, who ventured into the castle and encountered its ruins, began to disappear. It is known that, at one point, one of the region's most influential families sent a young heir to inspect the castle's fortifications, and he was never seen again. This case was especially impactful, for he wasn't just a servant, but a young noble with a bright future ahead. His loss deeply shook the house that had sent him, and this only reinforced the idea that something more than simple destruction was at play. What is most intriguing and unsettling is the fact that, somehow, the disappearances never seemed entirely random. They followed a peculiar pattern. Whenever someone got too close to the truth about what was happening at Harrenhal, they would vanish. Often, it was the most curious, those who began questioning or investigating the legends, who found themselves consumed by the castle and its dark forces. This led people to think that the castle, or the curse surrounding it, was somehow feeding on curiosity, on the quest for answers, and on the desire to understand the inexplicable. The sensation that the disappeared servants were being called by some greater force also spread among the few who still had the courage to visit the site. There are those who say the voices that call the lost still echo at night, inside the castle, as a grim reminder that the walls never forget those who venture into their corridors. Harrenhal, like many other cursed places, seems to have the power to absorb and consume those who enter its orbit, swallowing them in ways no one can fully comprehend. And as the legends of the disappeared servants spread, the castle continues to hold its secrets, while the echo of footsteps that never leave the castle remains for all eternity. As you close your eyes and let yourself sink into the silence that surrounds the ruins of the castle, perhaps for a brief moment, you will hear those voices, the whispers of those who have vanished, still trapped in the place they call home. And perhaps, who knows, that is the true nature of Harrenhal, a place that never allows its inhabitants to truly leave, doomed to live and die in the shadows of its ruins. There are many tales that have been spun about the haunted halls of Harrenhal, but few are as sorrowful and chilling as the legend of the ghosts of the Weeping Tower. This particular story is shrouded in an eerie sense of mourning, as it speaks not of a singular apparition, but of a deep, inexplicable sorrow that seems to linger in the very stones of the ruined keep. It is said that, on windless nights, when the silence presses heavy against the castle, faint sounds of weeping can be heard echoing through the desolate halls. Soft, mournful sobs, as if they are being carried by the air itself, seem to drift from the Weeping Tower, one of the highest and most desolate parts of the castle. The Weeping Tower, as its name suggests, is not just a tower but a place where sorrow is said to be concentrated, a place where grief is not only felt but physically manifested. Those who are brave enough to wander close to it in the dead of night claim to hear the sobbing of a woman, quiet but unmistakable. The sound echoes across the ruins, filling the empty spaces with a sadness so profound that it touches something deep within the heart of anyone who listens. It is said that these sounds are not just the product of wind or the creaking of old stone. They're the weeping of spirits, forever trapped in the tower, condemned to mourn for reasons lost to time. The origin of these ghostly weeping sounds is tied to one of the most tragic episodes in Harrenhal's long and tumultuous history, the story of loss, betrayal, and heartbreak. The legend traces its roots to a young woman, an unnamed maiden, who, according to the most widely accepted version of the tale, was once the beloved daughter of a noble family that had briefly taken control of the castle after the fall of House Harren. This family, though noble and proud, was not immune to the dark forces that haunted the castle, and it was within these walls that the young woman experienced a tragedy so great that it would forever imprint itself on the castle's soul. It is said that she fell in love with a man who was a knight of great renown, a warrior of honor, or so it seemed at first. Their love blossomed amidst the crumbling walls of Harrenhal, a love that, in the beginning, was filled with hope and promise. The young woman believed that her future was bright, and that she would find happiness and peace within the shadow of the castle's ancient stones. But as with many things associated with Harrenhal, her happiness was fleeting, and her love story was doomed from the start. The knight, who had sworn his loyalty to her family, turned out to be a man of far darker inclinations than anyone could have imagined. In a cruel twist of fate, he betrayed her trust, a betrayal so devastating that it shattered her heart and set in motion a tragic sequence of events. The details of the betrayal are not entirely clear, as the legend is muddled by the passage of time, but the essence of the story remains unchanged. The knight, in an act of cowardice and cruelty, took her life. Whether he killed her in a fit of rage or out of cold calculation, no one knows for sure, but the result was the same. Her life was cut short, and her dreams of happiness were shattered forever. In the wake of her death, the castle fell into an even deeper state of decay. The knight, racked with guilt or perhaps consumed by his own madness, fled the castle, never to be seen again. Some say he went mad, haunted by the ghost of the young woman he had betrayed. Others believe that he was consumed by the curse that lingered over Harrenhal, driven to madness by the tragic fate he had brought upon the girl. But what of the young woman herself? It is said that her soul, unable to find peace after such a violent and unjust death, became trapped within the Weeping Tower. Her spirit, unable to move on, remains there, mourning not only the loss of her own life, but also the loss of her love, her future, which had been stolen from her in the cruelest of ways. The weeping that is heard in the tower is believed to be her endless sorrow, her cries for a love lost, for a life that was never lived. And perhaps, in a deeper sense, her cries are a reflection of the castle itself, a place where dreams and hopes have been broken, where promises have been betrayed, and where only sorrow remains. For years, travelers and those daring enough to visit Harrenhal have claimed to hear these mournful sounds. Some say they are merely the wind, the sounds carried by the breeze that passes through the ruined stonework. But for those who listen carefully, it is clear that the cries are more than just natural noise. There is something in the tone of the weeping, a sorrow so deep and profound that it resonates with the heart, pulling at something that words cannot express. The sobs are quiet, barely perceptible at first, but they grow louder as they echo through the stillness of the night. And then, as abruptly as they begin, the weeping stops, leaving behind an eerie silence that lingers in the air long after. Some say that the weeping is a reminder of the castle's dark history, a history that is written in the blood of those who have lived and died within its walls. The young woman's death, while tragic, was only one of many such stories, a single thread in the web of grief and sorrow that has woven itself through the castle over the centuries. It is as if the castle, with all its broken promises and shattered dreams, has absorbed this sorrow into its very structure, and the weeping that fills the weeping tower is the physical manifestation of that sadness. Her ghost, trapped within the tower, is not just the spirit of a wronged woman, but a symbol of the countless lost souls who have suffered at the hands of Harrenhal's curse. But the legend of the Weeping Tower is not only a tale of sorrow and loss. It is also a reminder of the depth of the castle's curse. The sorrow that lingers in the Weeping Tower is not just the sorrow of a single life taken too soon. It is the sorrow of the castle itself, the sorrow of a place that has seen countless lives ruined, countless hopes dashed, and countless hearts broken. It is as if the very stones of Harrenhal have absorbed the grief and pain of those who have come before, and the weeping of the young woman is the manifestation of that anguish. As you stand in the ruins of Harrenhal, with the wind rustling through the trees and the air heavy with the weight of history, listen carefully. In the stillness of the night, you may hear the faint sound of weeping drifting from the Weeping Tower. The sobs may be faint, but they will carry with them the sorrow of centuries, the pain of a lost love, and the grief of a place that has never known peace. The Weeping Tower, like the castle itself, stands as a testament to the darkness that clings to Harrenhal, a reminder that no matter how much time passes, the sadness of the past will never truly fade. And so, the Weeping Tower remains, a place where sorrow is eternal, and where the cries of the past echo into the present. The young woman's ghost may never find peace, for her story is not just her own. It is the story of Harrenhal itself, a place where dreams are shattered, where hope is extinguished, and where only sorrow remains. There are many eerie tales that swirl around the cursed ruins of Harrenhal, but one of the most unnerving legends is that of the Silent Hall. The name itself is enough to send a shiver down the spine, evoking an image of a place where all sound is swallowed by a profound, suffocating silence. It is a room within the castle that, unlike the others, defies the very nature of what a hall should be. A hall should echo with the sounds of footsteps, the murmur of voices, the creaking of doors. But not this one. The Silent Hall is a place where even the most delicate sounds are smothered, leaving an oppressive, unnatural quiet that hangs heavy in the air. The stories surrounding the Silent Hall are varied, but they all share one thing in common: the overwhelming sense of unease that fills anyone who enters it. It is said that once you cross the threshold of the Silent Hall, the air changes. The usual sounds of the castle, the occasional drip of water from the cracked stone, the rustling of wind through the broken windows, all of these vanish, as if the room has swallowed them whole. The silence is not the peaceful kind that one might find in a quiet library or a secluded corner of a distant land. No, this silence is deep, unsettling, as though it is the silence of something ancient and malevolent. The kind of silence that fills the air with an invisible pressure, a weight that presses down on the soul. The most chilling part of the tale is that, despite this silence, there is always an overwhelming sense that something is watching. No matter how still the room may seem, no matter how quiet the surroundings, there is always the feeling that you are not alone. It is a sensation that many who have dared to enter the Silent Hall report. The feeling of unseen eyes, tracking every movement, every breath. Some say they can even hear the faintest rustle, as if something, or someone, is shifting just beyond the edges of their perception. Others describe the sensation as a kind of suffocating presence, one that fills the room without making a sound, as if the room itself has come alive, aware of those who enter its depths. The origins of the Silent Hall are as shrouded in mystery as the room itself. Some say that it was once a grand chamber, filled with the sounds of banquets and feasts. But that was long ago, before the castle fell into ruin. In the days of its glory, the hall was used for great gatherings, for the celebration of victories, and for the entertainment of kings and queens. It was a place where the laughter of courtiers and the clinking of goblets could be heard for miles around. But something happened to the hall after the fall of Harrenhal. Some say it was the curse of Harren the Black that transformed the hall into its silent, oppressive state. Others claim that it was the dark magic that seeped into the castle after the fire of Balerion the Black Dread, a fire that not only destroyed the castle's physical structure, but left a stain on the very land itself. The most popular theory, however, revolves around a tragic event that is said to have occurred in the Silent Hall itself. The story goes that the hall was once the site of a terrible crime, one so horrific that it was said to have left an indelible mark on the room. According to the tale, a noblewoman, one of the few who managed to survive the fire that ravaged the castle, was brought to the hall for a grand feast in the aftermath of the destruction. She was to be honored for her survival, celebrated for her strength, and made the guest of honor in a banquet meant to mark the castle's rebirth. But there was someone at the feast who had other plans. A man, consumed by jealousy, had long harbored a secret love for the noblewoman. In the darkness of the feast, beneath the flickering light of candles and the weight of the castle's ruins, he decided to take matters into his own hands. In a fit of rage, he struck down the woman, her life extinguished before anyone had a chance to stop him. The crime was brutal, quick, and silent. Silent, perhaps, because the murderer had no intention of letting anyone know of the crime. Some say he killed her without uttering a single word, his act carried out with such precision and cruelty that not even the sounds of her struggle were heard. The room, once filled with music and laughter, was plunged into a silence so profound that it seemed to choke the very life from the space. Afterward, as the murderer fled into the shadows of the night, the hall remained untouched by the usual noise that fills a banquet room. The sounds of the guests, the music, the clinking of glasses, all vanished as if they had been swallowed by the very walls of the room. And with that silence came something far darker, a lingering presence, an energy that seemed to fester within the walls. The tale goes that the noblewoman's spirit was not allowed to rest. Her death, cruel and sudden, left an echo in the room, a phantom cry that no one could hear, but everyone could feel. It was as if the very air of the hall had absorbed her tragedy, and in doing so, the hall became cursed, its silence an eternal reminder of the blood that had been spilled there. The tale of the Silent Hall has persisted over the centuries, passed down through the whispers of those who dared to visit Harrenhal and lived to tell the tale. There are those who claim to have entered the room and felt its unnatural quiet, describing the sensation of time slowing down, as if the very nature of the room defied the passage of moments. Some say they can feel the temperature drop when they step into the hall, as if the room itself has absorbed all warmth, leaving only a coldness that seeps into their bones. Others speak of strange sensations, of hearing things that cannot be explained, like a breathless whisper or a fleeting noise just at the edge of their hearing. But no one has ever been able to stay long enough to determine if the sounds truly exist, or if they are merely the result of the mind playing tricks in the midst of a place so heavy with history and sorrow. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Silent Hall is that it seems to act like a kind of black hole, drawing people into its web of mystery. Once someone steps over the threshold, they find themselves trapped by the room's oppressive nature, as though the very walls are keeping them in, forcing them to experience the silence in its full force. Some who have ventured too far into the hall report feeling a deep sense of dread, an overwhelming desire to leave, but they find themselves unable to move. Their legs become heavy, their hearts race, and the very air seems to constrict around them. Some say that, as they stand in the middle of the hall, they feel an invisible force pushing against them, as if the room itself is alive and aware of their presence. The Silent Hall is more than just a room. It is a reflection of the curse that has long held Harrenhal in its grip. The silence that permeates the hall is not simply an absence of sound. It is a suffocating force, a reminder that Harrenhal is a place where the past refuses to be forgotten, where the events that have taken place within its walls continue to haunt the present. The room, like the castle itself, is a place where nothing can ever truly be put to rest, where the past is not just remembered, but relived over and over again. And so, the Silent Hall remains, empty, cold, and silent, waiting for the next soul brave enough to cross its threshold. For those who do, the silence will welcome them, heavy and unyielding, a reminder that in Harrenhal, nothing is ever truly quiet. The past always whispers, even when the air itself is still. There is no shortage of strange and unsettling tales surrounding the ruined halls of Harrenhal, but one of the most mysterious and downright chilling stories is that of the rooms that rearrange themselves. This particular legend speaks of an aspect of the castle so bizarre, so inexplicable, that it defies all natural law and logic. The tale goes that certain rooms within Harrenhal, Rooms that are said to be ancient and steeped in the castle's darkest history have the unsettling ability to shift and rearrange themselves. One might enter a room, expecting to find it as it was before, but upon leaving and returning, the space may have transformed entirely. Walls appear where there were none before. Hallways change direction. Doors vanish or reappear. And no one, not even the bravest souls, can predict what might await them when they step across the threshold. The origins of this strange phenomenon are, like much of the lore surrounding Harrenhal, shrouded in mystery. Some believe that it is a result of the curse placed upon the castle by Balerian's flames, the same fire that consumed Harrenhal's walls and left it in ruins. According to this theory, the intense heat of the dragon's fire somehow warped the very structure of the castle, warping its layout, leaving certain rooms forever shifting and changing, trapped in a state of perpetual disarray. The fire was not just a physical destruction, but, perhaps, a metaphysical one, a force that altered the very fabric of the castle's existence, leaving behind a place that was never meant to be stable. Others argue that the shifting rooms are a manifestation of the curse of Harren the Black, the tragic king whose ambition led to his demise. The castle, built with the pride and arrogance of a ruler who thought himself invincible, might now reflect the disordered nature of its former owner's spirit. Some say that Harren's own hubris left an imprint on the castle, an imprint that manifests in the rooms that rearrange themselves, a chaotic, disorienting force that mirrors the king's own downfall. In this view, the rooms shifting and changing are not merely the result of physical damage, but are instead a symbol of the instability and destruction that followed Harren's death. The castle's disordered, chaotic state is the perfect reflection of the man who once ruled it. However, the most eerie and widely accepted explanation for the rooms that shift and rearrange themselves is that they are tied to the dark forces that have long haunted Harrenhal. The castle is not merely a structure of stone and mortar. It is a place steeped in dark magic and twisted by the energies that flow through its crumbling walls. Some claim that the rooms have been altered by powerful forces, perhaps ancient sorcery, that keep the castle in a state of constant flux. The very act of rearranging the rooms is a way for the castle to keep its inhabitants off balance, to ensure that no one ever feels safe or comfortable within its walls. The rooms that move are not simply a physical inconvenience. They are a reminder that Harrenhal is a place where the past cannot be escaped, where time itself may be manipulated and distorted by the dark forces that linger in the shadows. There are many reports of those who have wandered the halls of Harrenhal, only to find that the rooms they had entered were no longer where they thought they had left them. Some claim that the entire castle seems to shift in subtle ways. The walls that once led to one corridor now lead to another. Doors that once opened to a grand hall now open to empty rooms or walls of stone. A room that may have seemed familiar just hours earlier now appears strange and unfamiliar, as if it has transformed in the blink of an eye. The constant shifting of the castle's layout creates an unnerving sense of disorientation, a feeling that one can never truly get a grasp on the place. No matter how many steps one takes, no matter how many rooms one explores, there's always the sense that the castle is shifting beneath them, an unstable foundation that resists being understood or conquered. But it is not just the rooms themselves that create this sense of unease. The most chilling accounts of the shifting rooms come from those who have spent the night in the castle. They report hearing strange sounds coming from rooms that should have been empty, scratching noises, the faint sound of footsteps, or doors creaking open when no one is around. Some claim to have entered a room and found it completely changed when they returned, as if the very walls had shifted in their absence. Even more terrifying are the reports of people entering a room, only to find themselves unable to leave. The doors, once open, now refuse to budge, trapping the occupants inside. Others have spoken of rooms that seem to stretch endlessly, their walls bending and twisting in ways that should not be possible. The sheer impossibility of these events, walls that seem to change position, doors that lead nowhere, corridors that appear and vanish at will, gives Harrenhal an otherworldly quality, as if the castle itself is alive, playing tricks on those who dared it enter. The most unnerving aspect of the shifting rooms is the psychological toll they take on those who experience them. Many of you spend extended periods within Harrenhal report feeling a sense of claustrophobia, a growing sense that the castle is closing in on them, that they are trapped within a labyrinth that has no exit. The constant rearrangement of the rooms creates a feeling of being hunted, of being stalked by an unseen force that knows the castle far better than its inhabitants ever could. It is a disorienting experience, one that leaves people questioning their sanity and their sense of reality. The fear that comes from not knowing where you are, or how to escape, is palpable, and it is said that some who have been trapped in these shifting rooms have never been seen again. The rooms seem to take on a life of their own, drawing people deeper into their twisting halls until they vanish completely, swallowed by the maze of corridors and walls that seem to have no end. The idea of rooms rearranging themselves brings to mind not just the physical movement of stone and mortar, but also the idea of time itself becoming distorted within the castle. If the rooms can change at will, if they can shift and warp without any warning, then what does that say about the flow of time within Harrenhal? It is said that time seems to pass differently within the castle's walls. Hours stretch into days, and days seem to collapse into mere moments. Some who have spent too long inside the shifting rooms report losing track of time entirely, unsure of how long they have been wandering the halls or how much time has passed since they first entered. This strange temporal dislocation adds another layer of terror to the experience of being inside the castle. The fear of not only being lost in space but also in time, of having no grasp on either, can drive even the bravest soul to madness. But the shifting rooms are not just physical manifestations of the curse that haunts Harrenhal. They are a representation of the deeper darkness that lies at the heart of the castle. Harrenhal is a place that is constantly in flux, a place where the past is never truly gone, where the horrors of the past are replayed again and again. The rooms that rearrange themselves are not simply an inconvenience. They are a reminder that Harrenhal is a place where nothing is ever truly stable. The past, the present, and the future all seem to bleed into one another, as if time itself has been twisted by the malevolent forces that haunt the castle. The shifting rooms are a reflection of the chaos that lies at the heart of Harrenhal, a chaos that cannot be escaped, a chaos that continues to grow with each passing year. Perhaps the most unsettling thing about the rooms that rearrange themselves is that no one has ever truly figured out how they work. They are a mystery that has never been solved, a riddle that no one has been able to crack. Some say that the rooms are a product of magic. Others believe they are the result of some ancient curse placed upon the castle long ago. But the truth remains elusive, hidden deep within the heart of Harrenhal, where the walls continue to shift and twist, trapping those who dare to enter within a maze of ever-changing corridors. In the end, the legend of the shifting rooms serves as a reminder of the unpredictable and unsettling nature of Harrenhal itself. The castle is a place that resists comprehension, that defies logic and reason, a place where even the most basic laws of nature seem to be bent or broken. It is a place of chaos, of disarray, and of madness. And within it, the rooms that rearrange themselves are a perfect metaphor for the dark forces that shape the castle's haunted, cursed existence. No one knows how the rooms move, or why they do, but the very fact that they do serves as a chilling reminder that Harrenhal is a place where nothing is ever truly what it seems. Among the many legends that swirl around the ancient and haunted ruins of Harrenhal, one of the most chilling and tragic is that of the Tower of Ashes. This particular tale is one that evokes both horror and sorrow, as it speaks not only of death, but also of the lingering traces that death leaves behind, those eerie, inexplicable remnants that cannot be swept away, even with the passage of time. It is said that within the Tower of Ashes, amidst the crumbling walls and the charred remains of the once grand fortress, strange and unsettling things can be found. Ashes that are not the result of natural fires, but of something far darker. Human ashes, and not just any ashes, but those that appear to be of recent origin, as though they have been left behind, deliberately scattered among the ruins, as a grim reminder of the horrors that have taken place within the castle's walls. The Tower of Ashes, located within the heart of Harrenhal, is one of the most cursed and mysterious parts of the ruin. The tower itself has long been abandoned, its stones blackened and brittle from the fire that ravaged the castle centuries ago. But it is not the physical state of the tower that makes it so terrifying. It is the strange phenomenon that has been reported by those who have ventured too close to its remains. The tales speak of a layer of ash that seems to appear in the tower's inner chambers, a fine dust that coats the floor and the walls, as though something, or someone, has been consumed by fire and left behind, reduced to nothing but powder. The most disturbing part of this is that the ashes do not appear to be ancient. They are fresh, as if they have been recently scattered by an unseen hand. The presence of these ashes has been the subject of much speculation over the years. Some claim that they are the remnants of those who perished in the fire of Balerion, the massive dragon who destroyed Harrenhal in a single, devastating blaze. They believe that the ashes are the last remnants of the noble family that once ruled the castle, their bodies reduced to dust by the dragon's fiery wrath. While this theory seems plausible, it does not fully account for the more recent appearances of the ashes. The phenomenon of human remains appearing where there should be none, long after the initial destruction, suggests that something far darker is at play, something that goes beyond the natural consequences of the fire. Others believe that the ashes are connected to the curse of Harren the Black, the doomed king who built the castle in an act of defiant arrogance, only to see it consumed by fire in the end. According to this theory, the ashes are not the remnants of those who died in the fire, but rather those who have perished as a result of the castle's ongoing curse. The people who have entered Harrenhal over the centuries, seeking to reclaim its glory or unlock its secrets, have fallen victim to the same dark fate. The ashes that appear within the Tower of Ashes are the physical remnants of those who have died in the castle, souls who were never allowed to rest, their bodies reduced to dust as they were consumed by the malevolent forces that linger in the ruins. But there is one particularly unsettling story that has haunted the Tower of Ashes for generations, a story that has been passed down by those few who have dared to enter the tower and survive to tell the tale. This story speaks of a lord, a nobleman who came to Harrenhal many years after the initial destruction, seeking to rebuild the castle and reclaim its lost glory. He was a man of great ambition, much like Harren the Black himself, and he believed that by restoring the castle, he could overcome the curse that had haunted it for so long. But the Lord, like so many before him, failed to understand the true nature of the curse that had taken root in Harrenhal. Upon entering the Tower of Ashes, the Lord and his men were struck by an overwhelming sense of dread. The air within the tower was thick with an oppressive silence, and the walls seemed to pulse with an energy that was both ancient and malevolent. But the Lord was undeterred by the eerie atmosphere. He was determined to uncover the secrets of the tower, to prove that he could conquer the curse that had brought Harrenhal to ruin. What he did not know, however, was that the tower itself was alive with a dark power, one that would never allow anyone to escape once they had ventured inside. As the Lord and his men explored the tower, they began to notice something strange. In the deepest chambers of the tower, they found piles of ash, fine, powdery remains that seemed to coat the floors and walls, as though someone had been burned alive and left to rot in the shadows. The Lord ordered his men to gather the ashes, convinced that they might hold some clue to the tower's dark history. But as they touched the ashes, something terrible happened. The room seemed to shift, the air grew colder, and a low, guttural growl filled the space, as though some ancient creature was waking from a long slumber. The men began to scream, their voices strangled by a force they could not understand, and one by one, they fell silent. It is said that the Lord was the last to fall, his body crumpling to the floor as he was consumed by the same force that had taken his men. His ashes, too, were scattered among the piles in the Tower of Ashes, adding to the grim collection of remains that had accumulated over the years. The Lord's ambition had led him to his death, just as it had led so many others before him. And it was in the aftermath of his death that the ashes began to appear with increasing frequency, as though the tower had been feeding on his soul, using his remains to fuel its curse. The Tower of Ashes, ever since that day, has been a place where few dare to venture. The ashes that accumulate within its chambers are a constant reminder of the countless lives that have been lost within the castle's walls, and the whispers that echo through the ruined halls speak of a power that cannot be controlled. Some say that the ashes are the remnants of the castle's curse itself, that the very presence of the dust is an indication of the dark forces that still linger in the tower. Others believe that the ashes are a warning, a sign that no one can escape the castle's grip once they have entered. As the years have passed, the Tower of Ashes has become a symbol of death and decay, a place where the past refuses to stay buried. The ashes, which seemed to appear out of nowhere, now seem to grow in number with each passing year. They are a physical manifestation of the death and destruction that have been visited upon the castle, and they serve as a reminder of the souls that have been lost to the curse of Harrenhal. The tower, once a place of power and grandeur, has become a tomb, its walls filled with the ashes of those who dared to challenge the forces that still haunt the place. And yet, despite the danger that lies within, there are always those who are drawn to the Tower of Ashes. Some are curious about the curse that has claimed so many lives. Others are driven by ambition, just as Harren the Black and the noble Lord were, hoping to unlock the secrets of the castle and overcome its dark forces. But no matter the reason, those who venture into the tower are never the same. The ashes that coat the floor and the walls seem to seep into their souls, leaving behind an indelible mark, a reminder that Harrenhal is not a place for the living, but a place for the dead. The Tower of Ashes remains a haunted, forsaken place, its walls bearing witness to the countless lives lost within its shadow. The ashes, which seem to accumulate with an unnatural regularity, serve as a reminder of the curse that has claimed so many, and of the dark power that still lingers in the ruins of Harrenhal. For those who dare to enter, the tower offers no promise of redemption, no hope of escape. It is a place of death, of sorrow, and of ashes, where the past refuses to stay buried, and the curse of Harrenhal continues to claim its victims, one soul at a time. The final mystery in the long and tragic history of Harrenhal, a castle where dark forces have long held sway, is one that evokes both terror and a sense of unspeakable dread. This is the story of the gate that no one opens. It is not merely a physical structure in the ruined walls of the castle, but a symbol of something far deeper, a barrier that, for reasons unknown, is never crossed, no matter how much time passes or how many curious souls try to enter. The gate stands as an immovable force, as though it is locked not only by physical means, but by some invisible power, one that has kept it shut for centuries. What makes this particular gate so disturbing is not just that it exists, but that it exists in defiance of all logic. Despite the many attempts to open it over the years, no one has ever been able to do so. Some say it is merely an illusion, a door that appears real but is in fact just a trick of the light or an optical illusion caused by the warping of the stone over time. Others believe that the gate was deliberately designed to remain closed, a purposeful obstacle meant to thwart any who would attempt to pass. But these explanations fall short of truly explaining the mystery of the gate that no one opens. The gate itself is located on the outer edge of the castle, hidden away behind crumbling walls and overgrown foliage. It is not part of the main entrance to Harrenhal, but rather sits in an out-of-the-way area, tucked behind some of the more remote towers and forgotten structures of the castle. The gate, unlike the other gates of the castle, is not made of wood or iron, but is instead constructed of heavy stone, with a design that appears to be ancient, older than the rest of the castle itself. The stone is dark, almost black, and bears the marks of time, cracked and worn, as though it has been weathered by centuries of neglect and decay. Yet, despite its age and apparent fragility, it remains as solid as ever, unmoved by the passage of time. Those who have attempted to open the gate have done so in vain, as if some unseen force is holding it shut. No matter how hard they push or pull, no matter how much force is applied, the gate refuses to budge. Some say that it is a matter of physical impossibility. The stone is too heavy, the lock too intricate, for any normal person to open. Others claim that the gate is simply cursed, its closure a result of dark magic or a binding spell placed upon it long ago by those who sought to hide something within. There is a story, told by the few who have dared to approach the gate, that one man, a nobleman seeking to reclaim the castle after it had fallen into ruin, once tried to force it open. He was a man of great ambition, and he had heard rumors of what might lie beyond the gate. Rumors that spoke of untold riches, secrets hidden deep within the castle, or even the legendary treasures of House Harren. Whatever the reason, the nobleman was determined to open the gate, convinced that there was something valuable beyond it. He gathered a group of his bravest men and made his way to the gate, believing that the rumors were true and that he could unlock the secrets of Harrenhal. When they arrived at the gate, they found that it was as immovable as it had always been. Despite their best efforts, the stone would not yield. Some say that the nobleman ordered his men to use tools, crowbars, picks, and even fire to try and force the gate open. But nothing worked. The gate remained firmly shut, its surface untouched by their attempts. In frustration, the nobleman turned to one of his men, a trusted servant who had accompanied him to the castle. "Find a way," he ordered, his voice cold with determination. The servant, fearing the wrath of his lord, tried his best, but still, the gate would not open. Time passed, and the nobleman's frustration turned to anger. Some say that he tried one final, desperate attempt to force the gate open with his own hands. But as he placed his palms on the stone, something inexplicable happened. The air grew thick with tension, and an oppressive silence descended upon the group. For a moment, everything seemed to stop, as though the world itself had frozen in place. Then, in an instant, the nobleman let out a horrified scream. His body was thrown back as though an invisible force had struck him, sending him sprawling to the ground. His men rushed to his side, but when they reached him, they found that he was dead, his face frozen in an expression of sheer terror. The only thing left behind was the faintest trace of a chill in the air, as though the very life had been drained from his body. No one ever attempted to open the gate again. After that, the gate became something of a legend, a mysterious force that could not be explained or understood. Those who came to Harrenhal, whether out of curiosity or ambition, found themselves inexplicably drawn to the gate. Some would stand before it, wondering if the rumors were true, wondering what might lie beyond it. But none ever dared to approach it again with the same conviction. Over time, the gate came to symbolize something far darker than just an immovable door. It became a representation of the mysteries of Harrenhal, a symbol of the danger that lurked within its walls. The most terrifying part of the legend of the gate that no one opens is the idea that, despite all the time that has passed and the many who have attempted to unlock its secrets, the gate still stands, untouched and unchanged. No one knows what lies behind it, and no one is willing to find out. It is as if the castle itself is protecting something, a secret, a treasure, or perhaps something far darker, that must never be released. The gate is not just a physical barrier, but a reminder of the darkness that still resides within Harrenhal, a place that has never truly been abandoned by the curse that hangs over it. In recent years, there have been whispers that the gate has begun to show signs of activity, that it no longer remains as still and immovable as it once did. Some say that strange noises can be heard coming from behind it late at night, scratching sounds, faint whispers, and even the distant sound of metal scraping against stone. But these rumors are not confirmed, and no one has dared to investigate further. And so, the gate that no one opens remains one of the most unsettling and mysterious features of Harrenhal. It is a physical manifestation of the castle's curse, a symbol of the dark forces that continue to haunt its ruins. It serves as a constant reminder that some things, no matter how much we long to understand them, must remain hidden, locked away behind walls we are never meant to breach. Whatever lies behind that gate is a secret that will never be revealed, a mystery that will continue to haunt those who wander the halls of Harrenhal, forever out of reach. In the ruins of Harrenhal, few stories inspire as much unease as the tale of the Lord who went mad. The tale of this tragic figure, whose mind was consumed by the very curse that has haunted the castle for centuries, is one that paints a stark picture of the toll that Harrenhal has taken on its inhabitants. The Lord who went mad is not merely a man who lost his sanity. His story is one of gradual, creeping madness, a descent into despair that culminated in a horrifying and violent end. His story, like so many others that have unfolded within these cursed walls, serves as a reminder of the dark forces that linger in the heart of Harrenhal, waiting to claim anyone who dares to challenge them. The Lord in question was a nobleman who, like many before him, sought to restore Harrenhal to its former glory. After the fire of Balerion, which had reduced the castle to a smoldering ruin, few had dared to occupy it. Many saw it as a cursed place, a symbol of power turned to ash. But this nobleman, who came from a family with a long and storied history, was undeterred. He saw Harrenhal as an opportunity, a place where he could prove his own strength and restore the castle to its former grandeur. He arrived at the castle with great ambition, determined to rebuild what had been lost. But from the moment he stepped into the ruins, things began to go wrong. At first, it was subtle, a strange unease, a sense that the castle did not welcome him. But as time passed, the strange occurrences began to intensify. The nobleman, who had once been strong and full of life, found himself growing increasingly paranoid, his mind clouded by strange thoughts and dark visions. He began to hear whispers in the halls, voices that seemed to speak just out of his reach. These whispers became more frequent, more insistent, until he could no longer distinguish between reality and the maddening thoughts that consumed him. As the days turned into weeks, the nobleman's behavior grew more erratic. His servants spoke of him wandering the castle at night, muttering to himself, his eyes wide with fear. He would stare at the walls for hours, as though he could see something that no one else could. Sometimes he would disappear into one of the ruined towers for days at a time, only to return, gaunt and trembling, claiming that the castle was alive, that it was watching him. At times, he seemed to be talking to someone who was not there, his face contorted in terror, as though he was conversing with an unseen presence that only he could perceive. The nobleman's descent into madness was not a quick one, but rather a slow, gradual unraveling of his mind. The more time he spent within the walls of Harrenhal, the more he seemed to lose touch with reality. His once proud family began to notice the changes in him, but they were powerless to intervene. Some say that his family believed it was simply the weight of the curse that had taken hold of him, that it was the castle itself, with its dark history and its terrible secrets, that had driven him to madness. Others whispered that he had been touched by some dark force, perhaps the malevolent presence that haunted the castle since its creation. Whatever the cause, the nobleman's behavior grew more dangerous. He became paranoid, distrustful of everyone around him. He saw enemies everywhere, even in his closest allies. He began to lash out at those who tried to help him, accusing them of betraying him, of conspiring against him. His anger grew uncontrollable, and soon he isolated himself within the castle, refusing to see anyone. It was said that he would only venture out to give orders to his servants, but even then, he was distant, his eyes vacant, as though he were speaking to someone else entirely. The legend of the Lord who went mad culminates in a tragic, violent event that took place one fateful night in the heart of Harrenhal. On that night, the nobleman, now completely consumed by his madness, gathered his closest servants and took them into one of the castle's grand halls. No one knows for certain what happened in that room, but the results were unmistakable. The next morning, the servants were found dead, their bodies mutilated and arranged in a grotesque fashion. Some say that the nobleman had killed them in a fit of rage, believing them to be traitors. Others believe that the castle itself, driven by the curse that had claimed so many before him, had somehow possessed him, forcing him to commit unspeakable acts. What is clear, however, is that the nobleman's madness had reached its horrific peak, and he was no longer in control of his own actions. When the family members who had once been so proud of him arrived to investigate, they found only chaos. The nobleman was nowhere to be found. It is said that he had vanished into the heart of the castle, lost to the labyrinthine corridors and dark chambers that seemed to twist and shift around him. Some say he fled into the Tower of Ashes, where his body was later discovered, his mind broken beyond repair. Others claim that he was consumed by the very curse of the castle, his soul trapped within its walls, forever bound to the madness that had overtaken him. The death of the nobleman, and the gruesome fate of his servants, marked the final chapter in a long line of tragedies that had plagued Harrenhal. His family, horrified by the events, abandoned the castle and never returned. The nobleman's name became a whispered legend, a warning to anyone who dared to challenge the curse that had taken root in the castle. His descent into madness became a symbol of the dangers that lurked within Harrenhal, a place where even the strongest minds could be shattered by the darkness that lay hidden in its walls. Over time, the tale of the Lord who went mad became just one more story in the long, tragic history of Harrenhal. It was passed down through generations, a chilling reminder of the toll that the castle had taken on those who had tried to reclaim it. The curse of Harrenhal, it seemed, was not just a matter of physical destruction. It was a curse that preyed on the minds and spirits of those who entered the castle, twisting them into something unrecognizable. Today, the ruins of Harrenhal stand as a testament to the madness that once gripped its lord. The nobleman's story is just one of many that fill the halls of the castle with sorrow and despair. His madness, his descent into the abyss, is a warning to anyone who might think themselves immune to the curse that has claimed so many before him. In the end, the story of the Lord who went mad is not just a tale of one man's downfall, but a reflection of the castle itself, a place where even the most powerful and ambitious souls can be consumed by the darkness that lurks in its very foundations. Harrenhal, it seems, is a place where sanity itself is fragile, where the weight of its history and its curse can break even the strongest of minds. The Lord who went mad is just one more example of the horrors that have unfolded within its walls. His story, like so many others, is one that is destined to fade into the shadows of time, whispered about by those who dare to visit the ruins. A chilling reminder that Harrenhal is not just a place of physical ruin, but of spiritual decay as well. As we come to the end of our journey through the haunted ruins of Harrenhal, it becomes clear that the castle's curse is not merely a collection of eerie legends, but a living, breathing force that has shaped the lives and deaths of all who have entered its walls. The stories we've uncovered are but a small fragment of the long and tragic history that stretches back centuries. Each of these chilling facts, from the strange, unexplainable heat that lingers in the burnt stone to the shifting rooms that confound even the bravest of souls, speaks to the darkness that has claimed this once mighty fortress. Harrenhal stands as a monument to pride, arrogance, and the destructive forces of fate. It is a place where history and legend intertwine, where the past refuses to stay buried, and where the dead are never truly gone. The curse of Harrenhal is not just the result of one man's folly, nor is it confined to the remnants of a once great castle. It has seeped into the land itself, taking root in the very stones and soil, twisting and corrupting all who venture too close to its shadow. And yet, despite the horrors, the tragedies, and the madness that have unfolded within its walls, there is an undeniable pull that draws people to Harrenhal. Perhaps it is the allure of its forgotten grandeur, the desire to understand what has happened within these walls, or simply the curiosity that drives us to seek out the places that frighten us most. Whatever the reason, the castle remains a place of fascination, a dark enigma that continues to haunt the imagination of those who dare to venture near. In the end, Harrenhal serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of the human spirit, of how even the most powerful and ambitious can be undone by forces beyond their control. The curse that haunts the castle is not simply the work of a vengeful dragon or the anger of a fallen king, but the reflection of the darkness that lies within all of us. The Lord who went mad, the disappearing servants, the Tower of Ashes, they are not just stories of tragedy, but stories of human weakness, of ambition and desire that leads to ruin. As we close this chapter, let the ruins of Harrenhal fade into the quiet of the night. Let the whispers of its past grow faint, and the shadows that stretch across its crumbling walls grow still. But remember this, though the castle may be abandoned, the curse that binds it is not so easily forgotten. The stories of Harrenhal will continue to echo through the ages, carried by the wind, by the bones of those who perished there, and by the whispers of the castle itself. Now, as you settle into the quiet, let the weight of these tales rest gently on your mind. Let them be a reminder of the mysteries that lie in the darkness, of the places where the past refuses to stay buried, and of the shadows that stretch just beyond the edge of our understanding. And as the night deepens and your breath slows, let Harrenhal, with all its haunting stories, fade away into the silence of your thoughts, just like the long-forgotten souls that still wander its ruined halls. Let them sleep, just as you will soon, as the mysteries of Harrenhal slip away, swallowed by the night.